Hi,
Howdy.
welcome. You got your coffee going? I've got
I
tea.
do have my coffee going.
Good job. I had 3 cups of coffee this morning. Which is not good. We talked about getting too hyper, and yeah, that's not good for me. I don't really get hyper at that point. I just get like shaky. So yeah. Well, it's good to see you again. Yeah, I do.
That's funny.
Very much so. So
Good to see you.
today we have Toby SantaMaria, and it's lovely to see you. And hi, how are you? Again. Sorry.
I'm doing good. My little dog can hear me laughing, so now she's like peeking at me from under the covers.
Oh, is she gonna make a guest appearance? Please.
Maybe she'll make a guest appearance.
Okay, she comes out. Feel free to show us all. Okay, so are you ready for your bio so I can introduce you properly? Okay, all right, I'm just gonna go for it anyways. Okay, so Toby SantaMaria is a PhD student in Lars Brudvig's lab, who we had on last week at Michigan State University, and is in their 2nd year of study and research. Toby is an amazing human being, really, a human being, a force for good in the realms of savannas, diversity, equity, inclusion and justice, spreading joy, spreading facts, and taking out the Twitter trash. Seriously, don't mess with Toby or you are done. I think the world of you, and I don't know what energy supply you use, except I did find out coffee is part of it. But you're wonderful, and let's go, Toby. Okay, there you go. That's your bio. How'd I do?
Thanks. That was great. That was very good.
Okay, all right. I'll believe you. We'll take that at face value. Okay, so to get us started, I'm just going to turn it over to you. And you can tell like who you are, what you do. This is your story. You can start as far back as, childhood, or start right now where you are. It's all yours. Take it away, Toby. I'm just gonna drink my tea.
Oh my God, that is from childhood would be from childhood would be a really long time to cover.
Okay.
Let's see. So right now I'm a PhD student, like you said, with Lars Brudvig. I'm looking at how using fire as a management tool in restoration affects carbon cycling in that system, especially when it comes to changes in below ground carbon cycling. So basically decomposition and nutrient recycling. I would say, like, I was always really outdoorsy as a child. Like obviously my grandparents had the ranch, and then my grandma had this huge garden when I was growing up. And so I was always outside and I was always in nature. So to me, I was always like trying to be in some sort of field where I could be outside all the time, or at least like interact with, nature in some way, especially like in the form of plants and animals. So it was really funny when I went to undergrad, I was like, well, I don't really know what to study. I'll just get a degree in biology. Because I had tried being pre-med and I was like, that's definitely not for me.
Yeah.
And so I switched to biology, and then I took a macroecology class, and I was like, wait, this is really fun and interesting. And then I just kind of like went down the rabbit hole of like, well, what are the other kinds of ecology? And so when I started my PhD program back when I was at Texas A&M, I was like inching closer and closer to restoration ecology.
Okay.
And so finally I was like, what if I just became a restoration ecologist? So I jumped ship and I came to MSU with Lars. And Lars is like the restoration ecologist when it comes to grassy biomes. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's been really nice to work with Lars. It's a good mix of yeah, it's been a good mix of like me exploring my own ideas and him like guiding me, because there's definitely some portions of my life where like the things I think about for research, he's like, let's bring that back down to reality really quickly. And I'm
Yes,
like,
yeah.
yes, please do that.
I know that
As the
feeling
local adult in
very
the
well.
room, please do that. It's just hard because like you don't know, right? Especially since most of like my beginning kind of ecology and like restoration knowledge was from like REUs that I did. So I was just like, I'm just doing the field work. I have no idea like any of like the grown-up thought processes that went into this. And now
Well,
I
what?
am the grown-up who needs to put the thought processes into it.
Yeah,
Go
yeah. No
ahead.
pressure. No, I was just gonna ask you, what REUs did you do?
I did 2 REUs and then 1 like summer technicianship abroad for a summer. That was redundant. Sorry. So the first one I did when I was second year in undergrad was called Pine Map, and it was under OSCO Normip. And we did a couple of different projects, but the main project there was partitioning soil respiration, so the carbon given off by soils,
That's cool.
between like microbial respiration and then root respiration. So it was a lot of and seeing how that differed, how that partitioning differed between like plantations that were managed differently. So if you clear cut that portion of the plantation, or you selectively logged or whatever, like how did that change how that partitioning happens between the soil and the roots? There was a lot of lugging around a Lycor. It went really
Oh,
hot
that's cool.
uh
That's really cool, though.
summer. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot as I slowly baked from the inside out in North Carolina over the summer.
Oh, in North
My
Carolina.
second
Okay, wow.
RU was still focused on, yeah, it was
Well,
really pretty.
you're
It's
from
really
the
beautiful out
Southwest,
there. So I
right?
was still like, wow, this is, yeah. So I was like, wow, I did not know it could be both this hot, but I could breathe and feel like I'm drowning because it's this
Yeah,
humid.
right. All at once. Yay.
Um, so I did that, and then and then my second REU was still focused on biogeochemical cycling, but it was focused on nitrogen cycling in kind of harbors and sediments. So I was looking at how the presence or absence of eelgrass affects how nitrogen contaminated water um, flushes out of a harbor based on the eelgrass presence. That was at Marine Biological Labs at Woods Hole. Quickly
Oh, that's
found out
cool.
I am not a fan of doing aquatic biogeochemistry, um, but it's okay. I'm just a very terrestrial person. I'm just like, sorry, please keep me firmly on the ground.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that
Being in a boat
because,
was not my jam. Uh,
yeah, no,
and
for
then
sure.
my summer technicianship was at the University of Bergen, and we were looking at how, well, how different plant functional groups contribute to like overall carbon cycling. So like primary productivity, but then also respiration. And we were seeing like if you remove 1, 2, or some combination of these functional groups, like 1, who comes in to replace them, and then 2, like what happens to that like local, very localized microclimate, and how does that change what carbon cycling looks like in that little microclimate. So we were doing that not just from a gradient from like southern to northern Norway, but also from really wet sites to really dry sites, and high elevation sites to low elevation sites. So really just testing all the gradients. Uh, baby dog. Oh, he's gonna come over soon probably. Um, so yeah, that's all the research I did, which is why I jumped straight into a PhD program from a
Yeah.
undergrad.
Yeah, no,
So I
that
was
makes
like, maybe I
sense.
have enough experience to just jump in.
Yeah, for sure. And Woods Hole, I mean, that's not like you know, some little bitty thing. So that definitely gives you some credential too. Is my audio,
It was really
am I
funny. The year
lagging?
I chose to do that, Ari,
Am I lagging really bad?
no,
Okay.
um,
All right.
no, you're not.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. So when I agreed to do the REU at MBL, I had actually also gotten accepted to the REU at Rocky Mountain Biological Lab to do terrestrial carbon cycling stuff there. And I just sometimes I wonder like how different my life might have turned out if I had chosen to do the RMBL one
Hmm.
instead of the MBL REU. But things happen for a reason, and I like where I'm at now, so I think it's all good.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
As I like furiously chug my coffee, I'm like, everything's good.
Everything's fine. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's quite a journey.
Fine.
It definitely. Do you feel like
I know. I
like
remember
the?
I told my students once when we were still teaching in real life. What?
I think I'm
Do I
lagging
feel
really
like what?
bad. No, I'm sorry. I think I'm lagging really bad. My internet's
It's
probably not the best
okay.
right now. Okay. Well, we'll try to make this work okay, and hopefully it works, fairly well. I was just gonna say, like, how the different RAUs that you had, because those are very different from each other, and then from what you're doing now. How do you feel like those readied you for this? I mean, did they help you decide where you were going to go?
I think like each one fulfilled like a different role. So I think my REU with Pine Map and North Carolina State University, since it was also like faceted with forestry service, I think it showed me like the places I could go. And I really liked that. And it also got me into like terrestrial biogeochemistry, especially carbon cycling. So it definitely like sparked my interest in looking at like the carbon cycle. And then for the MBL one, it was really like it was good to like test the limits of what my interests were, I guess. And then also to have to pick up something really quickly because I knew nothing about like marine biogeochemistry or sediments or anything like
Yeah,
that.
right.
So I'd have to learn how yeah, so I'd have to learn like because the REU was only 9 weeks, right? And we were immediately going to start doing field work when I got there. So to have to pick up a field enough to know like how to do the field work and then like how to process the data in that short amount of time. I think that was good practice because that's basically like what your PhD is, except you get more time.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So I think that was good. And then the summer technicianship at University of Bergen, I don't know, it was like a flavor of like what academic life is like. Cause like I moved to a foreign country like right after I graduated from undergrad. And so I had to like figure out how to live in a new place, but then also like, expand my knowledge to like, well, do the different functional groups look like in Norway? And also just like how to work for 12 to 14 hours a day without passing away into nothingness. Like that was
Oh
good.
my goodness. Wow.
Well, you have to work where there's sunlight, right? And I don't know if you know a lot about Norway, but it rains a lot. So the days when the sun is out is the days that you stay out until the sun is no longer out. But it was
Wow.
really good. I learned a lot about like my like mental and physical resilience. So that was good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I also got to take a bath in a fjord, so that was really fun. I don't think many people can
Bucket
say
list
that.
item, check.
I was like, yeah. So
That's
I think
cool.
that's
I
how,
mean, those are
yeah.
like amazing experiences, and it definitely sounds like you love where you're at right now, at least in what you do.
I
Even if you do
definitely,
need a shawl, even if you're inside.
yeah, I really love being Lars's student, and I really love our lab. I think it's a good group, and it's like a good and safe place to learn, which is not
Yeah,
true
that's
of
cool.
all like places.
That is very true. That's very true. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about. So you seem extremely prolific in your work around DEI. Oh my gosh, she's so cute.
I know she's very tiny.
She's so little. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm really distracted. No, that's okay. That's a welcome distraction. But I did want to ask you about your work in DEI. So, are you on a committee? It seems like on Twitter, it seems like you're on, or
I'm
or
on
run the
2
committee?
committees.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, well, one committee is thankfully, hopefully ending soon. So,
Okay.
sorry, baby dog, I have to put you down. You're very distracting. So the first committee was a hiring committee looking for an assistant dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion
Oh wow. Okay.
for the college. Yeah. And that was a really good experience to learn like how a hiring process works. I was not prepared for how long it was going to take because I've been doing it since last summer, and it is almost this summer. Yeah, like you
Oh
know
my
that meme
goodness.
where it's like
Wow.
me still processing last March, and then it's like this March. I'm like, that's how I
Oh
feel about this
yeah.
committee. It's like me processing last August, and like this August is coming up.
Yeah.
Um, but thankfully, like that's hopefully that's all in the bag now. We'll see what happens.
Okay, cool.
And then I'm also on, so we have an ecology, evolution, and behavior department on campus, but it's more of like an interdepartmental program,
Yeah.
even though it calls itself a department. So I'm on that programs. I'm on the EADS programs DEI committee. I'm the co-chair with Sarah Fitzpatrick. Which has been really interesting because there's only 5 of us on the committee, so I feel like we all have tons of work to do every time we meet. But everyone's so dedicated to getting the work done that it's like also a relief that it's only 5 people because it feels more tight knit than I think normal committees do. Because it's like we're literally relying on each other, you
No,
know.
that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, committees can be completely the opposite experience, where you have a lot of inept people. Well, just like a study group, one person that does all the work or 2 people and everybody else coasts. So that's cool
Yeah.
that it's the opposite experience. It sounds like everybody's very on board.
Yeah, so I don't do study groups. That's been the weirdest thing about science for me is that I'm like, I'm a loner. I don't do anything. No one speaks to me. I'm alone in this lab. And now, like, as an adult, I'm like, oh no, I have to work with so many people. I don't have
Yeah.
any social skills. What am I doing?
Yeah, no, that is so true, and I think a lot of people can relate to that are scientists or studying to be scientists. Like I know at my university, I've witnessed members in the department having conversations, and I'm just sitting there like, this is the most awkward thing I've ever witnessed. Like these
Yeah.
loners trying to communicate with each other, and I quickly realized, even though I'm not really extroverted, I am the extrovert in biology at this school, like, so yeah, we all have our thing. But I definitely think a lot of us, scientists are definitely introverts and loners. It's hard sometimes to get along and I guess, have good communication streams.
I'm not an introvert, but I'm definitely like I'm an indoor extrovert, but I still have too much energy for like the people around me. So
Okay.
like so like so like I get along great with like scientists like Joe Veldman who are like very charismatic and like very talkative. But then when it's like me and like a very quiet person, I'm just like, uh-oh, I better learn to be quiet really fast or I'm gonna overwhelm this conversation.
Well, you're doing great right now. I'm not overwhelmed.
Sorry,
I
baby
think my
dog came
audio
back.
is. What's that?
I said sorry, baby dog came back.
Oh, it's okay. She can come anytime. Okay, so how about we move into question phase?
Sure.
Okay, very lackluster enthusiasm there.
Sorry, I'm like trying
All
to
right.
hold my dog while also like not knocking my computer off my dog.
Nope, that's all good. Okay, so this is my favorite question and the one that I can't answer very well myself. What is your favorite tree?
Oh my God, what a question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good one, huh? Do you want a hint? I can tell you how Lars dodged this question.
Oh, I'm sure he dodged this question, but you don't have
Yeah,
to tell me
so,
how he dodged it.
okay.
Part of this is also hard too because some tree names I only know in Spanish and I have no idea like what their
Oh, yeah.
English would be.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, I can look it up.
So at the ranch, we have this tree, and my grandparents call it a China berry tree in English, and I'm like, I don't think that's real. One, because that sounds very Orientalist and racist, and two, I just really don't think anyone would call it this. But in Spanish, it's called a piocha. But we have two of them that are by the house, and they're huge. They're like hundreds of years old, and they've outlasted like every like terrible storm or drought or flood, and they've always been like right there, almost like protecting the small little house. And underneath it is where like we all sit to like talk or eat dinner or hang out, because there's like hammocks underneath them, and like all of our seating area outside is underneath them, because like that's the cool place, like literally physically cool place to be in the summer. And so I think like that's my favorite tree.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like this, because like I just have such positive memories associated with it. And also they've lasted like such a long time.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I love that you have like a literal favorite tree. That's really cool. I have this willow, a weeping willow, that was from a house that I lived in as a child, and it was one of my favorite trees for a long time. And so it's cool when you can have that connection to it that's beyond just, oh, I love these physical characteristics. These leaves are so pretty, or whatever it is, Look how efficient this tree is, Okay, let's see. That was great. I like that. Okay. What is your favorite fireside food and or beverage?
Oh, fireside food. We have a lot of bonfires here, and so I've had a lot of fireside foods. I don't know what would my favorite be. Because like you can't say s'mores, because like that's very how-to basic.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say s'mores then. No.
I don't know if they still make this like Hostess cake, but they're called snowballs, and something one of my uncles, may he rest in peace, obviously, he used to like roast those over the fire, because I guess they're coated in marshmallow. It's like the cake coated in marshmallow. So he would roast that over the fire and then like share one with us. So maybe that's my favorite.
That's like mind blowing. I've never thought about that ever. That may be a fireside game changer for me. Yeah. I'm gonna like fires even better now. What'd you say? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't think I've seen one of those pastries in like a really long time. So I don't know if they make them anymore, but they were like,
I think they make them
to eat anyway. And so in Arizona, when we'd have like bonfires, that would be like our dessert, was like he'd just roast a bunch of those. And I'd be like, all right, dude, I guess this is what we're eating. They're really good.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw him do it, I was like, is he just setting this cake on fire? Like, what's happening? And then it was coated in marshmallow. So I was like, oh, this makes sense. My favorite fireside beverage is, I think it's pretty obvious, like hot chocolate. I'll be basic there. It's hot chocolate. Mostly because I can add coffee to the hot chocolate, and then it's like a mocha. So
yeah. No, for sure. That's good. Yeah, I would definitely say right now I'm liking in the mornings coffee. Like if you wake up and it's, you get out of the tent, it's like, where's the coffee? That's the only thing getting you out of a cold sleeping bag experience is the thought of coffee and fire. And then I'm really into like cider right now. We don't have a lot. I know that like I've been told anyways that up north cider is like a bigger deal, and so we kind of get like hand-me-down ciders, I feel like, down here in the South. And but yeah, I definitely like some cider around the fire, and s'mores. I like s'mores, and I think I like them more from the nostalgia. Like it's less like every time I eat one, I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it's really more about just the feelings that I get just from previous experiences with other people around the fire, I think.
Yeah.
I'm basic, okay? I'll just say it. I am.
Oh.
So let's move on from this question. I'm so uncomfortable. Okay. So, okay. So let's go back to like kind of what you do, just briefly. Like, why? Like, what is it that is so important to you about it? Or like, what is there that you would want to really convey to other people about what you do that you haven't already?
Like about my research or about like grassy biomes in general?
Anything. Just what is your like? What are you passionate about that you would just really like to just say?
Why is this question so hard for me to answer? I would say that I think people don't like readily recognize the extent of like grassland and other grassy biome types. Like I think people think like, oh yeah, everywhere was just supposed to be forest. And like there's only a prairie in the US, like, you know, the Great Plains prairie. And it's like, no, like
Right.
grasslands and other grass dominated systems occupy like 41% of the Earth's terrestrial surface. Some grassy biomes can be ancient, as at least Busan's research shows. And we don't know as much about them as like we want to pretend that we do. And so for me, like I'm really invested in my thesis, like not just because it's my thesis, but like I have this deep paranoia that like, oh yeah, we're all like trying to restore all of these systems. And we know fire is a way you restore grassy biomes. But like, what do we know about like the processes in those systems that fire is affecting? Like, what if there's like some sort of like hidden cost that we don't know
Yes.
to restoring a biome versus like learning how to manage it, like as it's turning into a shrubland or a woodland or something else? And so, like, I really want to make sure that, okay, if we're going to restore 41% of the Earth's terrestrial surface, I kind of want to make sure there's not like some hidden cost to it, especially in terms of like if we, because when you burn something, there's like the obvious carbon loss there, right? Because you're literally burning it. But if there's other processes downstream that are affected, like the way plants interact with their decomposers or the way decomposers interact with each other, especially as like species move. So part of my thesis is looking at how like an invasive earthworm is affecting the plant decomposer relationship in my savanna. If things are changing and we don't know like what that means in terms of, especially in terms of carbon cycling, like I would want to like take pause and like notice what's happening. Because like what if we do like restore these systems and there's this hidden carbon cost where we're losing carbon to the atmosphere instead of storing more of it? Because what we want to be doing is taking carbon out of the atmosphere with the actions that we do, not necessarily adding more or just being neutral, because I think at this point it's very obvious that at some point carbon needs to get out of the atmosphere and be stored somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I do what I do, because like I love that it's the UN Decade of Restoration, but I'm also like, we need to do it the right way. And so I'm trying to figure out like, well, what are the actual like mechanistic parts of what happens post restoration? So that's why I do what I do. I probably just sound like a conspiracy theorist right now.
Maybe to some, but you know, no, I love that. You know, like there's the people that do research on kind of these big questions. Okay, let's restore the prairie, or let's restore the eastern deciduous forest, or like my little ecoregion right here, the local one is called the Cross Timbers ecoregion, and it's kind of this mosaic of where the prairie meets the eastern deciduous forest. And so we have, you know, it's basically like an oak savanna, and you know, like, well, you can see all this back here behind me is like traditional cross timbers, or should be, but we have all these mesic species coming in and becoming the dominant species. Eastern red cedar, you know, big name, but like hackberry, elms, kind of that stuff too. And everybody, you know, just like, well, let's just cut it and burn it, or let's just burn it all. And and I agree, like it needs to be burned. That's part of its natural history, the fire regime, but like at what cost? Because I don't think that it ever was this before, because it was just so frequently burned, it never got to be this. And so like there's a lot that's changed, right? Like there's different fungal communities now, like different microbiomes in the soil that probably didn't exist before, and has that altered things, past is there like have we passed some threshold, that well maybe now burning every 2 to 4 years isn't what we should do here. So those are like, you have the big questions, everybody's like, oh yeah, let's answer this, but who's asking the questions about that question? Like, well, let's hold back a minute, let's not just all do the same thing, jump on the bandwagon. So I love that. I think that's really cool. Like, let's not all just go in one direction, just run with it. I love E.O. Wilson in his book. Have you ever read Letters to a Young Scientist? I think that's the right title. It was really good, because I was kind of at this place of not knowing, because I was going to try to go the engineering route. Like you mentioned, biomedical or like be a medical professional. Yeah, I was trying to do engineering, and I found out real quick, like math, not my strong suit. So let's not do that. And so I was reading this, and I was kind of like, well, what should I do? Which direction should I go? And he had said in his book, like, people want to run to the fray, like, oh, everybody's experimenting with this, let's all run over here and do that same thing. And he said, go start your own fray. Rough paraphrasing there, but that's what he was basically saying. And I love that because yeah, like, what if we go too far? What if we are doing the wrong thing or the right thing in the wrong way? So that's really cool. I love that. I'm glad people are doing the right, or asking those tougher questions, those kind of fine-tooth comb questions. That's cool. Okay, so I think we covered that. You want like a couple more questions?
Sure.
Do you have a favorite childhood cartoon, or one that you currently watch? I watch cartoons. I have 4 kids. We talked about that just a second ago, or a little while ago. But even if we didn't, I would still probably watch cartoons. So
I think it's pretty obvious that like my favorite cartoon ever is Steven Universe.
Okay, awesome.
I love Steven Universe. Like, I remember I first watched it in undergrad, and I was like, I don't get what the hype is about. And then I started watching it again during my gap year, because I took a year off between undergrad and grad school initially. I started watching it during my gap year, and I was like, wait, I love this show. Like, it's just like the perfect blend of like representation, but also hitting hard topics. And then like the sequel to the show, like Steven Universe Future, is all about like the main character even dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, wait, that's me. I'm dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. I feel so seen. And it's really funny because sometimes my friends will just send me episode clips and be like, this is you. And I'm like, I know it's me.
That's so cool. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know there was a sequel.
Yeah, it's really short. It's only, I think the whole thing is only like an hour for all 20 episodes, because the episodes are really short.
Okay.
For Steven Universe Future. So I really like that. I've watched the Steven Universe, the movie musical, so many times that I can like recite the dialogue as it happens. But I love Steven Universe.
That's awesome. I'm so glad I got such a great animated response. See that dad joke? Did you like that? Okay.
Yeah.
I really just thought of that too. As I'm sure,
I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So you may have already answered this, but if you could be a cartoon character, who would you be?
If I was a cartoon, can I include anime as a cartoon?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Don't let anyone actually hear me say that. I'm just kidding. I'm actually I'd love to be Sailor Moon. I have a tiara.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool.
And as you can tell, the tiara is so close to my desk that I just fished it out in 2 seconds. But I would love to I would probably love to be Sailor Pluto because she's so one beautiful and then like two powerful. Like her and like Sailor. Oh my God, Sailor Saturn. Yeah, are like the two most powerful sailors, other than like Sailor Moon herself. And Sailor Galaxia. But yeah, I'd want to be Sailor Pluto. Her aesthetic and like just like the way that she is, I'm just like I resonate with this deeply. I mean,
That's
probably because
awesome.
she's like a well-adjusted adult who's like deeply connected to her moral center.
What we're all striving to be.
Yeah.
That is so great. I love it. Those are wonderful responses. I love it. Okay. I'm so glad I asked those questions. I'm so glad they're on my giant question list that I sent you.
That's
Okay.
hilarious.
Okay. We really are kind of like over my 30-minute time, which is not really binding, I guess. It can be whatever we want it to be. But I want to ask
Can keep
you.
going if you want.
I know. I'm trying to think. Okay, so how about who has been the most influential in your life? Whether and you can have it in segments, it doesn't have to be your whole entire life, but or it could be, and whether professionally or just personally or whatever. I know. I should have asked. I should have asked that first. I don't know why. Like, we'll ask one more that's not so heavy, after this. Okay.
Well, like that's hard because I think I have like a couple different answers. Like growing up, the most important person in my life was my grandmother because like my mom and I lived with my grandparents growing up, and my grandparents had legal guardianship over me, so they're basically like my parents.
Yeah.
So I had three parents. I had my mom, my grandpa, and my grandma. But like my grandma was the one who was always home because my grandfather worked until he lost his job in the 2008 recession. And then my mom has worked for Walgreens since like forever, time immeasurable, and now she has a new job. But she's always like worked. She's never not been a working mom. So I would say my grandmother because she's the one who like was always there. So like we were always outside together, or like when we would get ready to go to the ranch, like I was helping her like pack everything to get ready while my grandpa was like off doing stuff and things like that. But then like professionally, there's like a couple different answers. So like I went to a very aggressive college prep high school called Basis. Um, and people can look it up. There's a lot of shady things that may or may not happen, but I definitely had like an advocate when I was there. So Jeff Winkleman, and he basically made sure that like I got into college, which was great because I didn't know anything about getting into college. Like I had no idea like anything. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going through the motions of a depressed high schooler. Like, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But he made sure I got into the colleges that I wanted to get into, and that's how I ended up at my undergrad, Kenyon College. And at Kenyon, it was really hard, like going from, the desert Southwest to like a majority white, rural, small liberal arts college. So I would say like if I hadn't met my advisor, Drew Kirchhoff, then I probably wouldn't be here at all. Like at all. Like not just like in school, but like living in this universe.
Yeah.
'Cause it was really hard. Like obviously now I'm like, why did I think I had such bad problems? Now that I've had therapy and stuff. But like in the
Yes.
moment, like that first 6 months of college, I was just like, this is it for me. Like I'm not I'm not gonna make it, everyone. And like Drew was really instrumental in like not just being like a safe place for me to be, but also just like because you have to unlearn some things, I think, that you learn in high school to be a successful like critical thinker to get through college. And
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
especially because I went to Basis, so my high school, like I had a lot of like really toxic things to unlearn, like, oh, your like self-worth should be tied to your grades, or like you know, you're only as valid and like worthy of being loved as like your performance. So I had to I had to unlearn a lot of gross things.
Yeah.
But Drew, but Drew was really helpful with that, and especially with like helping me chase my joy, because I did really try to like stay on the pre-med track, but like as soon as I started taking like ecology and like larger scale biology courses, like the clear difference in how motivated I was to take those courses and how well I did,
Yeah.
like it just became like too much to ignore. And so like I made Drew my overall advisor. I joined his lab. Now I'm here.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think professionally, in terms of like where I go intellectually, like don't tell Joe Veldman this. I hope he doesn't watch this. But he was like pretty instrumental. Like I remember I read his paper on like towards old growth concepts for savannas and other grassy biomes, and I was just like blown away, because up until that point, like everything had been about forests, and I was like, there's a whole other thing that I can look at. And then as I like, you know, when you go down the rabbit hole of like, well, what do we know? And I was like, wait, we don't know a lot of things. Hold on. And so
Yeah.
like I just like had my whole like world turned upside down by his paper. And then like he's incredible to talk to as well. So like he also sparked my he sparked my interest in fire ecology. Uh,
Future dad.
I know. Oh my God. He sparked my interest in fire ecology too, and was really helpful. It was like a just talking to him as like a primer of like, well, what is fire ecology? Because I've never taken a fire ecology course. That's like not a thing for me yet, which will hopefully change soon. But yeah, so I would say like professionally, like intellectually, Joe is like a big influence for me, like a really positive influence. And then I think it's obvious that like my hero of the current moment and probably for the rest of my life is Lars.
Yeah.
But like I wouldn't have continued in a PhD program without him. And he is really helpful in like helping me unspool my thoughts, because it's like I'm very chaotic, as you can probably tell by like my background and the way I look. um and he's really good at just like tamping down the chaos a little bit into something useful.
Yeah.
And it's also just nice because like even if you mess up, or even if you like need help, like Lars is always there to make you feel like you're valid and like to support you. And I think that's kind of rare in PhD advisors, because I still feel like for a lot of PhD students, like, yeah, their advisor's there to support you as long as you're doing well. And then as soon as you're not doing well, the advisor's just like, goodbye.
Yeah. No,
Good, and
for
then you need to
sure.
find your own help. But like Lars is the opposite. Like Lars is always there to like safely bumper you back into a safe zone. And he's never like, because I think some PhD advisors like establish like getting you back in the zone like in mean ways, or like sometimes downright cruel ways. But he's always super kind. And I think he genuinely like values you as a person regardless of like your productivity as a scientist, if that makes sense.
It does. And that is amazing.
So yeah, I love Lars. But I think we all know that. I say it on Twitter all the time.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, because more people need to know that. You know, like I love too that you took a gap year, because that kind of highlights what I was just. Go ahead. Sorry.
I had to. Like the last year of undergrad, so I didn't like my REU at MBL, which if you've seen my early Twitter posts was very obvious. But it was like not a good like the research was fine, but like the community around it was not.
Yeah.
And like part of it has to do with like the East Coast is really, really different than the desert Southwest.
Sure.
But I remember like at one point, like I got into a car with someone and they were also another person of color. And as soon as like the white person got out of the car, like me and the other person of color looked at each other, and he was like, "Hello, my fellow minority. It's good to see you."
Wow.
And I was
Yeah.
like, if that's how we feel towards each other in like this space, like maybe I can't be here. And so like I got back to my undergrad like after having done that REU, and I just like I straight up told Drew, I was like, so I know that I've been saying I'm going to be a scientist this whole time, but maybe I don't. Like, what if I just didn't continue to be a scientist? And he was like, what? So like he started like the not long process of like nursing me back to like wanting to be a scientist. Um, and so like that's how I got my job at the University of Bergen, was through his connections. Because like someone put out a call in like the working group he's part of, and then he was like, Toby could do it, and then they were like, sold, we don't even need a letter of rec, send her over. And I was like, what? So I was like, perhaps this is a sign. Hey, baby dog, could you not? No. I was like, maybe this is a sign that I should give this another shot. And then like, I don't know, like I've never had another thing that I was so excited to wake up at 6 a.m. for than like grassland research. So I was like, maybe I should give it a shot.
Yeah.
But I was also like, so over, like I got back from Norway and I was like, it's time to start like the grad school application process. And it's so overwhelming that I was like, there's no way I can like do anything else during this like 6 months between August and December. Because I was only applying to 5 schools. Like I don't know how some of these people apply to like 15 to 20 schools. That's so much.
No, I don't get that either. I don't know who those people are.
And then also like my whole month of October was just like traveling to different schools to interview. So I was just like, I have to take a gap year. Like there's no way. Because I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back and I'll like teach at my high school, because like that's always like a thing that they've offered me. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that. And then I started working on applications and I was like, I don't got time for that. So I really took 6 months off to work on applications. And then once that was over, I started working for Walgreens. Just like average blue collar stuff. But I think it was good for me to like go back to blue collar work for a second, because I don't want to say like it helps you stay grounded, because that sounds very cliche, but also it kind of does. I feel
for sure.
I feel like a lot of academics forget, like, yeah, not everyone grew up with academic parents or academic aunts and uncles. Like I didn't grow up with any academics in my like immediate family, right?
Yeah.
And so, or like the acceptable academic to be was like a doctor, like a literal medical doctor. And so like I didn't want to lose that ability to empathize with people who weren't academics. Because that was like another one of like my biggest fears after MBL, is like I'm gonna lose all my like ability to empathize with other humans.
Everything that makes you kind of who you are at that
point.
Yeah,
like I'm just gonna lose all of this, because like to be a successful academic, like that's what you have to do, right? You have to abandon your culture, you have to abandon all empathy,
right?
You have to be selfish, you have to like undercut others, you have to be hyper competitive. And I was just like,
yeah, well, I mean, it's like what's modeled, I mean, at least that's the old standard model. I'm so happy that like recent and future generations I know are breaking that mold, and you are definitely one of them for sure. And I mean, that, like, what a breath of fresh air to get away from that old white male model.
Yeah, it's like honestly the future of academia if it wants to like actually survive, but it's still fighting it pretty hard. If you've ever been in any physics department, you'll know that. But yeah.
I haven't. I avoid physics. I love it, but I avoid it. It's not my thing. God, man, I guess we could just keep talking, and we could like make it like a 2-part series. We could just that much. No, I actually didn't even look at the clock until just now. So I feel like, I mean, I definitely don't want to cut you off or anything like that, because I can get super serious for super long time. Because like,
you want to keep going, we can keep going.
Well, I mean, like, you bring up like PTSD, and we talk about like, I know like you've made posts, I've made posts. We talked about, on our, our meds to mental health in academia. And, like, you raise so much good stuff. And could we like do, if you would be okay with it, I'd like to do like a whole episode pretty like fairly soon. I know you're doing like, are you doing comp right now? Like, are you preparing?
Yeah, I'm prepping for comps. So my
Okay.
comps are March 30th. So wish me luck.
Okay. Let's go with like April or something. We could do something like that, or sooner if you need. I won't dictate your time. You know what you need and don't need. We could do something like that. Because I would love to have just a whole episode on like mental health and academia and stuff, or multiple ones. Yeah. So okay. All right. So let's wrap this one up, and then let's do that, because I just feel like this is a great platform where people, if that's their jam, if they, have mental health issues, or, we all have some issues, whatever they are, they could tune into that and maybe get a lot of good out of that kind of conversation, or at least the normalization of it.
Sure.
Okay. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Probably Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter, and then my institutional email is on the internet for people to find if they want to email me. So yeah, that's a good way to reach me.
Okay.
I will say one of my former advisors used to like DM me on Twitter to get my attention. If I didn't reply to an email within like 24 hours, he'd be like, "Hey, did you see my email? Like, just send it to me as a DM." And I'd be like, "Well, now I definitely will."
Okay.
But yeah.
So I'll make sure,
I like Twitter because it's like.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
No, it's okay. I said I like Twitter because it's like the non-aesthetic version of Tumblr. And so I loved Tumblr as like a high schooler because it's like all about aesthetics, but also like quippy opinions. But now it's just like the quippy opinions on Twitter. I'm like, yes, that's all I want.
It definitely seems like your jam. Like you're super good on that platform. So I mean,
you haven't even seen me live tweet conferences. That used to be my
I know, I'm
live
missing
tweet
out.
Conferences. And so when conferences come back, you'll see peak Toby, because I'll be live tweeting conferences, and you'll be like, oh my God.
Well, I certainly won't miss that. That's for sure. I'll definitely be tuning in. Sorry, I think this is like going out. We talked earlier about how I have the cheap version of the like AirPods. So
gotta get wired in headphones.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to be cool, and I just need to embrace that I'm not, and just go like full on gamer. I'll just get my gamer headphones out. So that's what I'll do for the next one. They're reliable. Okay, Toby. I hope this is like the first of many Zooms with you, both recorded and off the record.
Okay.
Because those could be fun too. Okay, so thank you so much for our fireside chat, and I look forward to the next one and non-fireside chats with you too. So, all right, I guess I'll see you at the next one.
Fun. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.